Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to a look at the provisional 2021 calendar, which was announced earlier this morning. Now, usually by this time of year, we would already have a definitive schedule for the following season. However, given the current global situation, F1 has had to focus on reshuffling this year's calendar, and so naturally 2021 had to be put on the back burner. But following weeks of speculation over just what kind of season we will get next year, we now have an official but still provisional 2021 calendar. Of course, as with everything in Formula One, this still needs to be signed off by the World Motorsport Council, but that is generally a formality. So the season is set to start in Australia on March 21st and will be followed just 7 days later by the Bahrain Grand Prix. China is currently scheduled for April 11th, but the big headline is that Vietnam, which was expected to host a race on April 25th, is missing from the schedule, and it appears the Grand Prix has now been dropped for 2021, reportedly due to ongoing political issues over the race. If you'd like to know a little bit more about that, I will pop a link in the description below. That leaves a gap on the calendar which F1 does want to try and fill, according to reports at least, and I'll go over some of those rumoured replacements a little bit later in the video. Back to the calendar though, and Spain is currently set to kick off the European season on May 9th, and that is followed by Monaco, Azerbaijan and Canada, with the races in Baku and Montreal back to back. That's going to be interesting logistically. It's then on to the French Grand Prix on June 27th before Austria, Britain and Hungary ahead of the usual summer break. Following that break, the season will resume on August 29th in Belgium, and that has been paired with the return of Zandvoort, of course one of many races to be called off in 2020. Can't wait to see cars around Zandvoort, gotta be honest. Just the one race in Italy next year, for now at least, and that's at Monza on September 12th, which rounds off a triple header before Russia, Singapore and Japan, another triple header of races. On to Austin for the US Grand Prix on October 24th before Mexico and Brazil, which will, as it stands, not be held in Rio but will instead remain at Interlagos. Thank God for that, more on that later. As you may have read, the Brazilian Grand Prix was set to move to a new track at Rio after F1 agreed a deal. However, the new circuit still needs environmental approval, and so the sport's move there is on hold. Saudi Arabia makes its way onto the new schedule with a street race in Jeddah on November 28th, and the season will finish as ever in Abu Dhabi on December 5th. So then, just the 17 races this year, but my word are they trying to make up for it next season. That means so far 22 races have been provisionally confirmed, but if F1 bosses can fill the slot vacated by Vietnam, which again it is reported they are trying to do, we could still be set for a record-breaking 23 races in 2021. There we have it then, a couple of surprises on there, but those aside, I think that's pretty much the calendar most of us were expecting. On those surprises though, I can't honestly say I'm devastated to see Vietnam missing next year. A little bit disappointed because I was curious about what kind of race we would see, and I do find that circuit layout quite intriguing. So maybe we will see it in the future, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. As for what will replace it, it is believed that Portugal, Turkey and Imola are the front runners to fill the gap between China and Spain. Now, logistically, China to Turkey would make the most sense as far as I can tell in terms of heading back from China to Europe anyway. But also heading to Portugal before moving on to Spain makes a lot of sense as well. To be honest, we'll see how this weekend goes, but I'd take either of those tracks. I'm not totally sold on Imola though. It is, again, one of my favourite tracks, but as we saw last time out, it's not likely to throw up all that much action. Sepang and the return of the Malaysian Grand Prix could also work, but as much as I would love to see that track return, I do think it's unlikely. It didn't make it onto the calendar this year despite everything going on, and when asked earlier in 2020 about the race potentially returning, circuit bosses said they were open to the idea, but the offer would have to be good, and approval would also be needed from the government as the hosting fees are not cheap, and quote, the spend must be worthy to the government and also the fans. We'll see, but I think it's likely to be between Portimao and Istanbul. The other surprise, for me at least, is the provisional inclusion of Interlagos. I'm so happy about this one. A few weeks back, it looked as though it would not be on the calendar, and we had seen the last of that particular circuit, and F1 was set to head to the controversial new track in Rio. However, due to those environmental concerns, it now looks a way off, and to be quite frank, good. I say good because of the environmental impact, but also because there is no need to get rid of Interlagos, and I would 100% rather see that stay than any new track anywhere in Brazil. It is steeped in history. More often than not, it throws up great racing and is massively popular with fans. I know there are political reasons behind the proposed move, but I say invest the money to improve facilities and keep Interlagos on the calendar long term. Just one more thing worth noting on this. It is reported that F1 will not be dealing with the same race organisers who have been promoting the race for years and who have tight ties with Bernie Ecclestone. That's probably a relief for Liberty Media, who might now be able to strike a better deal. The last one isn't a surprise at all, as it was announced last week. However, even if it hadn't been announced ahead of the publishing of this new calendar, I would not have been surprised to see its inclusion. That is, of course, the race in Saudi Arabia, which forms an end-of-season back-to-back with Abu Dhabi. The race will be held around the streets of Jeddah before moving to a permanent track in future, and it will also be run at night, so another night race on the calendar. Now, I think it's fair to say it has been met with a lot of criticism, especially given F1's push for inclusivity and an end to discrimination. But as much as I agree with a lot of that criticism, I'm afraid to say money talks. Sorry to be the one to break that news. That's sarcasm, by the way. But the fact of the matter is, F1 already races in a number of countries with questionable human rights records, and will continue to do so long as the money is there. It's a business after all. These numbers are in no way accurate. They are just there to make a point. But if the owners of the Nürburgring came along and offered $10 million to host a race and Saudi Arabia came along with $1 billion, it's obvious which one Liberty will take. I'm not going to sit here and feed you a load of BS. I don't like it, just like I don't like the fact the sport races in some other countries. But I'm also not going to kick up a massive fuss about it. It is what it is. We'll all bitch about it. But whatever happens, whatever we say, F1 won't care, as they're going to get paid either way. And they know that probably 99% of us are going to watch the race weekend anyway. Quite frankly, pushing your blood pressure through the roof is going to make no difference whatsoever. All we can hope is that F1, as they have claimed they will try to do, will use its platform to be a force for good when the sport arrives there next November. Overall, though, it is great to see F1 being so confident about putting on a packed calendar given the issues this year. But I look at that calendar and all I think is, wow, that is a lot of races. And in all honesty, the closer you look at it, the more it appears to be a case of quantity over quality. Maybe it's because this year's titles have all been wrapped up for a while now, or pretty much wrapped up for a while. And so aside from that really good battle for third place in the Constructors, we're kind of waiting for the new season. But I feel like 17 or 18 races is plenty. We also, as covered when I went through the calendar there, have 2 triple headers next year, which is something teams wanted to avoid in a normal season, due to the strain it will have on personnel both professionally and personally. And even a lot of fans have said that it's a bit much despite their love of racing. And don't forget, the maximum number of races for a season was recently raised to 25, so there is the potential for that calendar to grow in 2022. Perhaps Miami will happen, for example, maybe Vietnam returns, or at the very least gets to make its debut, and I'm sure there are other countries Liberty would like to dip its toes into as well. I would personally much rather see quality over quantity, but again, the more races scheduled, the more money the sport makes. That's what it's going to come down to at the end of the day. That's not a surprise. Again, for the second time, maybe third time in this video, F1 is a business. That is what it is there to do. So we've got 22, maybe 23 races in 2021, perhaps 25 by 2022, and maybe even 30 by 2030. Who knows? I'm pretty confident, though, this calendar is just going to grow and grow over the next few years. But what do you guys think about the new calendar? You can let me know your thoughts on it all in the comments section. That is it for this news reaction video, but I will be back later this week with the Turkish Grand Prix preview. In the meantime, though, don't forget that you can, of course, follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.